morning. Welcome, friends, back to the hidden power of language. Today is session 3, and it is other factors affecting language. The first day we talked about personality and how that affects language. Yesterday we talked about what language is. So today I wanted to get back to some other hidden and not so hidden factors that influence the way that you speak. I'm going to share my screen and jump in. I hope that this video clip that I've chosen to start our time with is not too super inappropriate, but I thought it was funny, so here we go.
Ross kissed me.
No! Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God!
It's unbelievable.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! Okay, all right, we want to hear everything. Monica, get the wine and unplug the phone. Okay. Rachel, does this end well or do we need to get tissues?
Oh, it ended very well.
Oh, do not start without me! Do not start without me! Okay, all right. Let's hear about the kiss. Was it like a soft brush against your lips, or was it like a, you know, I gotta have you now kind of thing?
Well, at first it was really...
Oops.
Oh, God, and then we just sort of sunk into it.
Oh, so, okay, was he holding you, or was his hands, like, on your back? And, you know?
No, actually, first they started out on my waist, and then they slid up, and then they were in my hair.
Oh.
And then I kissed her.
Tongue?
Yeah.
Cool.
Sorry, so the tongue part might have been just a little bit. Okay, y'all know I mess this up every single time. Give me a moment. There we go. So anyway, I hope that you thought that was funny. If you didn't, then I'm sorry. So back to just reminding you as we start the session of a couple of things. You might be, these are pre-recorded, but I am with you if you are on Facebook in my group or on my page. I have hosted a watch party in both of those. So you can comment, I can comment, and then on YouTube, I posted it on YouTube during that 10 o'clock time slot as well. So comments, I'll be monitoring your comments. I will put extra links or content or anything that I think will be helpful to you. I will post that in the comment section. I have my timer set, as always, to be respectful of your time. And so far, I have stayed under 30 minutes for both days. So this makes me very happy. So today, I'm going to share my screen again, but without sound this time. So today we are talking about factors that affect your communication. Even though they may not all be hidden, I think that parts of them will be hidden. I have a lot of slides, a lot of stories, some things to share with you today. So please engage with me and ask me questions or tell me things that you're thinking. So we've talked about personality already. You might be an espresso like me, which is very sort of creative and loves to brainstorm and be upbeat and positive, but also talks too much. You might be a decaf, which would be very opposite, who's someone who's very detail oriented and methodical. You might be an instant, who is like the now, let's get it done. And you might be a cappuccino, which is the more relational, more detailed type person. So if you haven't taken that quiz yet, go back to session 1, look at the comments, the link for you to go to my website and take it will be there. But what else? What else affects? Now, I will say there will be many things I will not put on here. Things like education, geography, your parents. Oh my gosh. I mean, the list is endless. But the ones that I think will help you and things that I can address are the ones that we'll talk about here. So the video opened up with gender. We have different gender type communications. If you've been with me for my series, The Stress Club, then I talked specifically about women and our language, which I am going to talk about both here for just a minute. But we have there are different theories of why our language is different. One theory or a woman named Deborah Tannen talks about it quite a bit, and she talks about the fact that we're just subcultures, male and female. And so we have different ways that we talk. But we know that even today in 2020, and you might laugh, but I had to sit here for a minute and think, are we still in 2020? And we are. But even today, there are still gender expectations as far as we come for men. The expectations when men talk oftentimes is that it's going to be about status, that there will be directness. And by public talk, I mean, whatever oftentimes they have to say, they're just going to say it. This is not everybody. I make the comment, hopefully each session. I'm talking more about patterns, not norms. It does not mean all men or all women. For women, language tends to be, as a pattern, more about connection, more about indirectness to keep that relationship going. And if there's something that needs to be said, women sometimes can be more prone to private talk. Now, I do want to put one slide in here specifically for women, because this is a big, I'm going to move this bar. I don't know if you can see it or not. For women, there can be a risk of speaking up. Because, you know, in this series, when I'm talking about the hidden power of language, it's many things. I'm going to do one day where I talk about being kind without being a doormat, but I'm also going to talk about conflict. And most of the difficulties we have with language comes around things that are hard to talk about. Speaking up, saying no, asking for things. Even for men, you know, that can be a risk. But for women, one of the things that frustrates me about communication training, you might call it assertiveness training, or even new leadership training, or managing conflict or emotions, or whatever it is that women are given advice to say no, don't discount a compliment, speak up, ask for things. And then women are given tools to do that. But what they're not told, and if you just hear, okay, I have to show you because we're very, this is who just came to visit me, is my little Charlie there. He's been patiently waiting for me as I was getting set up for this. So hopefully I have you back on the screen. Anyway, what women are not told in some of the dated communication classes is that you might be rated as less kind, less friendly. I have less kind on there twice, sorry. Not as sociable, too feminine, too masculine. So for women, we still live in a time period where we're expected to play like men, but if we play like men, we might be called the B word, but if we don't play like men, we might be a doormat. So this is a whole area where I won't spend a whole lot of time, but that is definitely a factor that affects our communication. Now, the tips and tools and things are going to come more in later sessions. Right now, we're just laying the foundation. So that's one thing, is there are gender expectations. The second thing are thoughts and emotions. So let's say something difficult happens. Someone takes credit for your idea at work. No one's helping you around the house. People are driving crazy in traffic. Country's not opening up as fast as you want it. Someone jumps in line at a store. Well, whatever it is. Oftentimes, we have thoughts that escalate our emotions, and we don't even know we're having the thought. What a And you know, with my personality style being sort of that positive espresso, I can't end what is apparently a stream of cuss words without putting a smiley face at the end. My emails are full of exclamation points and smiley faces, but I do try to limit them when I know it's professional. Okay, so maybe you're at work, your thought, somebody took credit. No one values my work. He or she thinks the world revolves around them. Now remember from our last session, we don't know what someone else thinks. And so it's good for you to get the thought to remember that if you think that, if I think I know what they think, it's only going to hinder me. How dare he, she, fill in the blank. I just wish they would change. They just need to change. I wish he was more like blah. I want that person to feel bad and tell me how sorry they are. I want to be right. I'd love for the whole company to suffer. And do you see how these thoughts can then escalate your emotions? This is a very powerful thing that I want you to really grasp on. It is not people's behaviors that get on our nerves or upset us or escalate our emotions. It is the motive we assign their behaviors. You know, I was in a store recently, and I've told a story like this before, but in the current climate in the stores, it takes on a whole new ball game. So we're in stores and you're supposed to be 6 feet apart. Maybe you're required or at least encouraged to wear masks. Some of the stores have arrows on the ground or on the floor to tell you which aisle you should and should not go down. It's such a crazy thing. And sometimes it's been funny. Like I was in Publix or Walmart with my daughter the other day, and we wanted baking stuff. I think we were looking for flour. So several of us all came to the edge of that baking aisle at the same time. And we looked at each other because the arrow was like, we're here wanting to go that way, but the arrow is going this way. And we all stopped. And it was probably 5 seconds of like looking, and then we just all started laughing because we were like, well, what do we do? A woman in my neighborhood posted on Facebook that she got yelled at in Publix for going down the wrong way, yelled at. So we're like, what do we do? What do we do? Well, there were only like 2 people in the aisle. So I was the one who was like, okay, I'm going to do it because what I want is right there. And I ran in the aisle and grabbed it. We were all laughing. It was fun. But it doesn't always happen that way. I know there have been a couple of times where I have stood back because someone is looking at the area that I want, spaghetti or whatever. And so I'm waiting and I'm patiently waiting. And your mind is sort of like, do they not know I'm back here? Are they just not caring that everybody's having it? It's not the fact that they stood where you wanted or where I wanted. It's that I assign them a motive of they don't care. They're not thinking about anybody but themselves. And that's what escalates our motives. So be very careful about assigning motives to people, whether it's in traffic, whether it's in the store and someone takes all the toilet paper, whatever it is. We don't know people's motives, and that will serve to escalate your emotions, and that will serve to influence your language. And it's kind of hidden unless it's not, and it's not now. All right, so number 1 was gender expectations. That influences your language. Number 2 is your thoughts and your emotions. That can influence your language. Number 3 is sort of a 2-parter. It's the potential risks of what I say, both professional and personal. So let's do professional first. Some risks of speaking up at work. Well, what are some common complaints at work? My pay isn't fair. My boss micromanages me. My coworkers, I have issues with them. HR isn't responsive enough to our concerns. Managers play favorites. My ideas aren't recognized. And these are just some common complaints. Well, why do people sometimes not speak up? Sometimes not. And by speak up, look, I don't mean speak up. I mean, just speak up, have a conversation. Well, there's some risks. One of the potential, notice I said potential risks, is you won't be liked. And that could be a risk. You might think that's more of a woman thing, but it could also be a cappuccino thing or an espresso thing. Most people don't want to be disliked. No matter what your style or your gender, I think most of us would feel better if people like us. I'm trying to see what's in my screen there. That's Charlie as a puppy. Who doesn't like that puppy? The reality is, though, not everybody will like us. And it's very freeing to not require that. So just think about that. It is, no matter how wonderful you are, not everyone is going to like you. So maybe that's a risk that you can bring to the forefront of your mind and realize that it won't always be that way. This is also Charlie, as he left the, oh, I'm adorable face to the, I'm really your puppy now, and I'm not always going to be good. That's his mischievous face. You'll be labeled as a troublemaker. Well, the reality is, most times, if you do have conversations and speak up about things in a professional way, which we'll talk about, you'll gain respect and you might inspire people. You might inspire other people to speak up. Another risk is sometimes people say, well, I'm not going to say anything because it'll just make it worse. And I get that. I mean, all of these I get. Please don't think that I am just not understanding. These are real risks. I mean, I say potential, but it's a possibility, so it's real. The reality of speaking up and increasing the problem really depends on your definition of the word worse. It doesn't usually make it worse. It may make it different. So maybe you speak up to a friend about something that's upsetting you, and maybe that friend doesn't speak to you for a while. So it didn't make it worse. It just changed it. So what we have to do is decide whether, and I think it's doable to come up with what might happen when we speak up. And that's probably one of the last things we're going to do is talk about scripting out conversations and the words that you can choose from, because language is so powerful. But I think it's very doable to come up with some scenarios of what might happen and see if we're willing to live with that. So I hope that makes sense. And then a big one, sometimes people think they'll lose their job. The reality is that you could. I think it depends on what you're speaking about and how you're speaking about. So you got to ask yourself some tough questions. If I'm afraid to have a conversation with someone because I think I'll lose my job, is that a job you want? And look, I know in this climate, jobs, I don't know. I don't even know what to say about that right now, but you still have to ask yourself some tough questions. If you can't speak up because you'll lose your job, you at least need to, I believe, start making a plan for what you want to do in the future. So that's professionally. What about personally? I think I intertwined those a little bit, sorry. Potential risks of speaking up with personal issues, checking the time. Some common personal issues are ending a relationship, hurting someone's feelings, money, in-laws, the list could go on and on, children, right now homeschooling while you're still working, being with people 24/7 who you might not have been with so much in the past. So what are some risks of having conversations? And let me just say before I jump into this, let me just go off this for a second. There are issues in my life, professionally and personally, but mainly personally, because at this point I work for myself. Issues that I have not spoken up about because I see the risk is too great. That can be professional or personal. But you know what? The good thing is that it's a choice at this point. It's a choice, and I know that I'm just not ready. So some of the risks of speaking up in a personal situation is that the relationship will end or someone will be hurt. The reality is it might end, they might be hurt, you might be hurt. It's whether or not it's worth that risk. Sometimes the fear is that it will become an argument. And sometimes, think about that cappuccino. I don't want to have that argument. It could become an argument. But the hidden risks, those risks, and I'm going to even say that these risks can be hidden if you haven't brought them to the forefront. This is really, I hope this will open your eyes. There are some hidden risks. Let's say that there's some, and this is professional as well. Actually, this right here is to end this section, personal and professional. Let me just throw out something. Let's say that you're at work, and you can translate this to home. And there's someone at work that never does what they're supposed to do. They don't turn in assignments on time. When they do, there's mistakes. We work with that person. Everybody talks about it. You get to work in the morning. Let's call it the water cooler. Oh, did you hear what happened? And what did you do? And you all talk about it. Well, let's say that person suddenly becomes better. I don't know that we realize that when it comes to situations in our lives, sometimes when someone's not doing as well as we are, we have some power. We feel like we have some power. And if they suddenly, whether it's with your boss or with someone in your life, if they stop doing that behavior, your power is gone. A second risk is you might be wrong or be responsible for something. Let's say that there's an argument, something has happened with you personally. There are always those two sides. And if you have the conversation about it, you might have to admit some fault. You might have to not be completely right. So again, what if that person changes? When it does, it can change all of the other relationships in your world. Because let's say that person at work changes. Now, when the rest of you get together, what do you have to talk about now? Changes the dynamic. So that's the second. So the third. The first thing we talked about was gender expectations. The second was, oh my gosh, what was the second? Oh yeah, thoughts and emotions. The third were potential risks of speaking up. And now the last one that influences the way that you talk is your confidence. I hope that this will play for you. I want you to watch this little one.
Stop that!
No, the water.
That's not so long.
Did you see that little girl? That is actually my granddaughter, who is now 16 years old. She's been through type 1 diabetes. Last year, she went through, she was diagnosed with, well, a year before, Ewing sarcoma, and went through 9 months of intense, debilitating chemotherapy, but she's healed and wonderful now. This is her when she was 4. She's in the ocean thinking that she can say to the waves, stop that, and they will stop. Look at that confidence. She actually still has that confidence today, which is what got her through so much of her illnesses and things in her life. Do we have that confidence? And there are so many things that can zap our confidence. I want, and I didn't see that down there says choose confidence. That was a picture that I took from something else, so ignore that. But I want us to go from that I can't to I can. But there are so many things in our world that zap our confidence. And I'm just going to even throw out there age. I am 55. And lately, you know, things don't look the same. I'm not saying I'm a big old monster, but things don't look the same. Things don't sit in the same place. The wrinkles, the spots, those things. And then I get this thing in the mail from AARP for my birthday for a membership. And they were going to give me a free insulated truck. I was so excited. And then my husband, I'm just kidding, I wasn't excited. My husband is a photographer, and he will say, hey, let's do a photo shoot. So sometimes he'll try to get me to like pose for what was, he'll want to do like a practice shoot. And so this was the model shoot, but when he had me do the practice shoot, it's just this. So confidence can affect our language. And I don't know at what point sometimes our confidence gets zapped. Our confidence can get zapped when we're young. If we have a life that is filled with maybe parents or older people in our world who don't give us the love or the words that help lift us up and give us power. But as adults, it's now time to make choices. I hope I use this word as often as I mean to use this word. Choices, 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 because there is nothing more beautiful than watching someone walk in their own power. And by power, I don't mean power me over you. I just mean power that I can choose words that are going to lift me up, but lift you up as well. And that's a hidden power that I want us to develop, because you are the only one who can decide what you want. And if doing, I'm going to stop share now. I truly believe that learning how to use language in a powerful way is the way to help you get the things that you want, but also to help bring up the other people in your world. I truly believe that. I believe it's about language. The only thing that I really have control of my life is what I think and how I speak. Those are two big things that I have control over in my life. I hope that you have learned something from this session. Today we talked about factors among many that we won't talk about that influence the word choices that you make. And those are gender expectations, your thoughts and your emotions, the potential risks of the words that you choose, and finally, just the confidence in yourself that you can speak in a powerful way. There are many things out there that will try to zap it, but I'm going to try to replace it. So, in light of my style as an espresso, my gender as a woman, hopefully my confidence, and I see no risk here, I'm going to say to you, I'll see you tomorrow, and love and hugs.